Hello, Mount Zion family and friends. Thank you for stopping by to see this biannual video to give you an idea and a report of what's been happening in the life of our wonderful congregation. As I told you the last time, this time my videos are going to be a little bit different. The focus is not going to be on a general report of what's been happening in 2024 here at our church, but trying to focus on one particular area of interest and also that has been a wonderful blessing to our congregation. And this time, I want to talk to you about a part that, although we always hear about it at the end of the year because we have a stewardship campaign and we're thinking about making budget and paying the bills and having enough money for all the things, finances are very important to the life of the church, not only for the reasons I just told you, but also because through your financial generosity, we are able to do the work of God. Thank you in advance as we are in this season of discerning your financial contribution. And so let's allow then Ed Beaver to tell us, how is it that your money continues to bless us and others?
Hello, Mount Zion friends. My name is Ed Beaver. I'm the finance chair here at Mount Zion since 2022. My wife Ruby and I joined Mount Zion in 1979, raised 3 children, and now I'm the grandfather of 6. It has truly been a joyous journey of faith and friendship, fellowship, and learning and Christian love. My purpose today is to give you some charts that describe some background and perspectives on stewardship, provide transparency to you, and an overview. We'll get into some details. I intend to cover 4 areas: where we are, how we take care of things very carefully, all of these resources that you provide through your generous donations. We'll talk about some of the views of how this looks from a multi-dimensional point of view over time. We're on a good trend. We'll close with some ways forward. In general, we're a growing congregation today with both members and what I would call our current resources, where that represents our operating funds and other ongoing things. We are debt-free after this big project to build our pavilion. And that came from direct pavilion donations that you all so lovingly made. They worked hard as they came in 2024, going right directly to the payments for the pavilion to be built. We also used carefully heritage resources, and I'll talk about the distinction between the two in a few minutes. Pavilion campaign does run through March of 2025, so that you're able to spread your donations out over time. In the process of taking care of resources here at Mount Zion, we do monthly reviews. There are multiple committees, collaborative teams, boards of directors, and we all take a look at where we are financially and where we're going. We do follow a process of strict adherence to managing designated funds for designated giving, and we have some 40 different funds that we manage to keep everything straight. On the right side of the chart, there was a legacy of all the different types of funds. And as you can see, the operating fund, of course, is the largest. There's 7 major areas in there, plus another in that category of other. There's 70 different types of funds that we keep track of, and we all manage that in realm. This is a brief overview of the types of resources that you provide with your generous donations. There's the operating fund, which is the ministries, and the mission here that covers salaries, utilities. You also support the Open Doors Food Pantry, which is a completely separate entity, and that's a wonderful charity that supports this community at large. It's a great activity that Mount Zion does to support our community. The Pavilion campaign has been a surge in donations. It's all going on concurrently. There's really not a lot of long-term heritage. The heritage funds or resources come from the surpluses that we've had in previous years. Some years we have a shortfall and we withdraw from the surplus to cover the shortfalls. We also set aside out of the operating budget reserves for maintenance, and that's necessary. We have a large, wonderful facility here that requires constant attention to make sure that we have a good worship experience. There's also a resource that came from our prior building program labeled the Legacy Missions. and it's a set aside for a new ministries program. This came into being long after the Open Doors Food Pantry was started, and it's intended to have a ministry where we have additional hands-on activities by members of Mount Zion. So we're looking for ideas for that. So put that under your thinking cap and give it some thought. Another area of resources that we have that's long-term are memorials that are donated when people pass, and funeral recognitions and so forth. So that's another area, and I'll explain how those can be used in a little more detail. When we put all of these things together in a dimension, we get kind of a three-dimensional view of what needs to go on. I've wrestled with this, how to present this. Let me take some time to explain this one detailed chart. It seems detailed, but it's actually a fairly straightforward organization. Obviously, the vertical dimension of the chart is the amount of resources, dollars, in each particular fund. Usually that's the status at the end of the year, or in the case of this last year, it's our current operating budget. Running horizontally across the chart is time, starting in 2019. And then, of course, going into the page are the different types of resources, and I've grouped them here into the heritage and the current resources. For 2024, I provided data in this chart, both from April and August, so that you could see the dynamics of how we used the pavilion funds. So on the next chart, I'll go into a little more detail. Our current operating budget income is $625,000. That's been increasing slightly as you look across the different years there in the back. It went down and hit a low spot in 2021, and it's now slightly increasing each year. The important thing about this chart, when you look at that and realize that we're sustaining that operating budget to cover all the ministries, is that at the same time, you, with your generosity, have been sustaining the Open Doors Food Pantry and then have the pavilion surge down there in the dark red that represents a significant increase in giving. The pavilion has accumulated around $199,000 total. We have about $10,000 of additional pledges that we're expecting to come in, and they can come in all the way through March of 2025, again, giving you the options of how to spread your donations. We have spent a total of $305,000 on the pavilion, starting from the 2022 expenditures for the early engineering. The surplus, as planned by the council, has dropped down to $95,000 here at the end of August of 2024. So that's getting down to where we want it to be so we can cover any shortfalls that come up in our operating budget year to year. Now, the surplus came from, as I stated earlier, from prior years of surplus donations. And also we benefited from the Paycheck Protection Program for the part that went and covered the salaries during 2020 for Mount Zion. And 2020 was an unusual year in that we actually, at the end of the year, had a full set of donations, but during the middle part of the year, things were delayed as we all dealt with that tragedy. At the end of 2020 and into 2021, we had actually repaid all of the debts that we had with the Paycheck Protection Program and so forth. The reserve are monies that are accumulated each year to set aside for big expenses for the maintenance. We have currently $135,000 in that reserve. Trustees, and all their careful work to keep cost of maintenance down, are worried about long-term, over 5 years, about $300,000 of maintenance. But all of that really just represents, a small percentage of the facilities values based on insurance here at Mount Zion. We clearly need to take care of these wonderful facilities that uplift us in our worship experience. The Open Doors Food Pantry, which is illustrated there in purple, varies year to year as donations vary and as the expenses for the food that the Open Doors Food Pantry must purchase change month to month. Again, you've been sustaining that resource along with the new pavilion as well as the operating. On the next, we'll look at the legacy missions. That's just sitting there at $41,000 resource. Again, this is an opportunity to think about a new hands-on mission for Mount Zion, and we're looking for ideas for that. Another thing that can be used if you have resources for a loved one's memory, you can designate that for furnishings and so forth. So it's another resource. Some of our pavilion furnishings have actually been donated by that means here in just the last month or two. And finally, on the last chart, here's some ways forward for you to be thinking about how we're going to be doing. And you discuss with the Lord what your commitments are for 2025. Of course, the church operations, our annual operating budget includes all the annual missions, support for the conference, and so forth. Continuing your support for the Open Doors Food Pantry, and if you still need to complete your pledges for the Pavilion Building Fund, that would be appreciated. And think about how you might be able to help with the pavilion furnishings. There'll be other discussions about stewardship, including how you might be able to set up some endowments, but that's all for future presentations and discussions. I thank you for your time and your generosity.
Thank you again for taking the time to watch this video. And I also want to take a moment to thank Ed for taking the time and his talents to share with us all of this information that allows us to have a big picture of how the church manages and uses the money that we collect from your generosity. But as you saw all of these charts, these statistics, these tables, all of this information, I want you to remember that this is not just about money and statistics and charts and all of those things. This is about generosity. This is about how your money that is given is used not only in a proper way, but in a way that will continue to bless other people and have an impact directly in the lives of many other people that at some point, we may never meet. But yet your generosity continue to bless them. So thank you again, and I'm looking forward to a year, 2024, that will continue to take us to a place where we will continue to grow. And I can't wait for 2025 to see where God is going to lead us as we continue to use the resources and the many blessings that God has given to Mount Zion. Thank you.